Because if you have a bunch of good receivers, you don't have to have a number one. Everybody can play just about any position on the field, so it's like you don't need a number one. Everybody's going to do their job, and they're going to get put in different spots, so you don't have to have a number one.
Today is Friday, September 7th. This is the Cowboys Beat on CLNS Media. I'm Ari Temkin. Our guest today is Cowboys rookie wideout Michael Gallup. But we start today talking about the psyche of a locker room and why I think the Cowboys are potentially making a devastating mistake when it comes to the psyche of their locker room. And to me, this really starts with fourth down. And that teams that are more prone to going for it on fourth down end up converting a higher percentage of their fourth downs. And that's not even relative to the amount of times they go for it. It's just the teams that are more familiar with it, teams that go for it more often, teams that are accustomed to going for it on fourth down, teams that don't, run their offense off the field and they're kind of looking at the sideline like what's going on here, and they're wondering if the punt unit's going to come out. And the teams that kind of vacillate, they're not going to be as successful on fourth down as the team that's confident, that knows within a given situation that they're going to go for it. Those teams are going to be more confident. It's the mentality. It's the psyche. If it's habitual behavior and the team's accustomed to it, the team doesn't have to look to the sideline to ask the coach if they're going to go for it. They know it. The offense is lining up. They're ready to go for it. And they're going to convert. They're confident. There's a familiarity there. They know they're going to convert because they're comfortable within that given situation. So what does this have to do with the Dallas Cowboys? Because the psyche of the locker room is important. And when you talk about fourth downs and teams that are familiar and comfortable going with it forward on fourth down, there's no confusion. Everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing, and that's, in a nutshell, what football is all about. And the Cowboys, in recent history, have managed to create a lot of confusion within their locker room, and I don't know that they have understood the impact that has in that locker room. Give you an example of this. I've talked about this a lot on the Cowboys beat, so bear with me. But last season, Zeke Elliott faced a suspension by Roger Goodell in the NFL. You can call it unjustified and ridiculous, and I'd agree with you wholeheartedly, but that's neither here nor there. There's a precedent that was set by the NFL. They were going to win a legal battle regardless. So as long as they delayed that suspension, he was going to miss 6 games. But how do the Cowboys handle it internally? How did they manage the psyche of that locker room? How did they manage Zeke Elliott? If you watched All or Nothing, you got a decent amount of insight into the way they handled it, which was to basically act as if it wasn't there. And maybe then it would go away. I don't know. What other rationale could you come up with? But that's what they decided to do with the Zeke Elliott situation. They didn't manage it so much as they just handled it day by day. And that every day they came in and they reported, and they didn't know if their running back was going to be available to play in the upcoming game. They're like the team on fourth down looking at the sideline like, are we going to punt now or are we going to go for it? The team that looks to the sideline on fourth down, unsure of if they're going to go for it or not, is not going to convert that fourth down. They're going to turn the ball over on downs. That's exactly what happened to the Cowboys last year. They show up to practice on Monday, and Zeke is there, and Tuesday he's there, and Wednesday he's gone, and they're not sure if he's going to play. I mean, Zach Martin spoke in the locker room earlier this week about this very issue. We didn't know. I mean, he would show up at practice, and then the next day we'd hear that he had been suspended, and then a few days later he'd show back up again, and he's ready to play. Anybody can tell me that's a sustainable situation for a football team? Anybody think that a situation with that much up in the air is going to be conducive to winning in the NFL? Okay, so you might be asking, all right, what does this all have to do with right now? And that's a fair question. So, during Thursday's media availability in the Cowboys locker room, Travis Frederick spoke. This is the first time Travis Frederick has spoken since the news came out that he had Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is a nerve disease which your body basically attacks its nerves. It's horrible, devastating, and obviously detrimental to Travis Frederick's blossoming career. And so when the diagnosis is initially made, I come on the Cowboys beat and I'm basically say, I went on the Cowboys pregame show on 105 through the Fan, the Dallas Cowboys radio network, and said the same thing. Like, they need to act as if Travis Frederick's going to miss the entire season. That has to be the mentality and the psyche of this locker room. So there's no confusion. So they're not looking at Joe Looney like, hey, you just got to play well for a couple of games and then Frederick comes back, because there's so much unknown. So if you just try to create a more known situation, he's going to miss the entire year. Then now you know the circumstances. And if he comes back earlier, that's gravy. But just operate like he's going to miss the entire year. Well, then news starts to trickle out. And then, of course, the ultimate decision was made to keep him on the Cowboys 53, which signals that, hey, man, he could come back within a month, maybe sooner. He could come back pretty soon. Which, again, I'm not a doctor, but okay, sure. I mean, maybe the Cowboys know something that I don't know. So it's, they could have put him on short-term IR, which means he doesn't take up a roster spot, but then he has to miss the first 8 weeks of the season, so he could come back in week 9 and short-term IR. The Cowboys decided against that because they felt perhaps he could come back sooner, which is great because the Cowboys need to have Travis Frederick. But then Frederick spoke. And Frederick was his same smart, savvy, funny guy, right? Like, he seemed like the same dude. Wasn't down, was in good spirits, was great. But brought up the fact that there's no timetable on his return to the field.
I have no idea at this point, and I wish I was lying to you and by telling you that. But when Coach Garrett tells you that this is a week by week thing, it really is. I have some of the best doctors in the business working on this, and they can't even begin to predict how this is gonna work. So it really is a week by week thing. We're gonna see how the improvement continues, and hopefully I'll be able to get back there as soon as I can.
Okay, so no big deal, right? I mean, we've heard this the entire time. This is just what Travis Frederick is saying. We know there's no timetable, but I mean, you'd guess, again, based on the Cowboys' inclusion of Travis Frederick on the 53, that they feel, in conjunction with the doctors, that it's going to be at least before 2 months. The 8 weeks have passed. Well, that is until Frederick said this.
My understanding of it will be a very slow process to start. My guess is there'll be a bigger jump, and then it will be slow.
Are you in that middle part now, do you think?
I would say I'm still in the beginning.
You caught that, right? So he says at the beginning stages it's a slow process, then it'll speed up, and then that final stage it'll slow down again. And then when asked what stage he's in, replied, still in the beginning stages. Still in the beginning stages of this slow process, which will then speed up and then slow down again. Travis Frederick was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome somewhere around August 22nd, at least August 22nd, was the day that this became public. So basically 2.5 weeks ago. But who knows when the diagnosis was initially made, so could be 3 weeks. And again, as you mentioned, slow process early on, speeds up, and then a slow process again. So they're still in the beginning stage of this slow process, which has already taken 3 weeks, and they're still in that beginning stages. Let's say the faster process takes 1 week, and then the next slow process, the third part, takes another 3 weeks. That's a minimum 7 weeks. And that's assuming that it's only 3 weeks that he's in these beginning stages. And again, I'm just throwing crazy numbers out there, but I think the timeline that you just heard from Travis Frederick is pretty instructive into what he's attempting to come back from and how long it could take. And then there might have been the most stunning revelation to come out.
Yeah, I experienced numbness in both my feet and both my hands into one of my arms.
Okay, and where are you at in that regard?
Currently, I'm still experiencing numbness in both my feet and both my hands.
You caught that one, right? Currently, I'm still experiencing some numbness in my hands and feet. Again, I'm not a doctor. I don't really know any semblance of this timeline, but I initially said just act for the psyche of the locker room, for the sake of the psyche of the locker room, like he's not going to play the entire year. That way you won't have to worry every week if that was the week he was going to come back, like Zeke Elliott, as it were, or, like going for it on fourth down. You'll know. And yet, the Cowboys kept him on their 53, meaning they felt comfortable that he was going to be available to them before the first 8 weeks of the season, which doesn't seem like a likely timeline based on we just heard from Travis Frederick, who again was in great spirits, shared this information very openly, but doesn't certainly seem like, from what we heard from him, that this is a guy that's going to be ready to come back in a month. So now you might be thinking, well, look, what does it matter? Keep him on the 53, put him on IR. What's the difference? It's just a roster spot, and that, like, that part I'm fine with. Like, I don't really care for them to use. Like, I'm fine with them not using the roster spot on somebody else. I am. Like, I'm perfectly okay with, fine, you use the roster spot on Travis Frederick. To me, it's the Psyche thing. Like, that's the thing that is not. It's really detrimental. And like, the Cowboys do this a lot. There was the issue in, was it 2015 with Romo, where like week after week after week, Jerry Jones was going on the radio like, yeah, we're going to get Romo back soon. Once Romo comes back, he's going to fix all these issues. And he came back and then got hurt again and then was out again. And like, that's the kind of stuff that is meaningful for a locker room, that I think sometimes people don't really appreciate how meaningful that kind of thing can be for a locker room, but it is. It's exceedingly meaningful to have in the locker room a bunch of players that want to have the most optimistic viewpoint, and so they're going to grasp that Zeke Elliott's going to play, or that Romo's going to play, or that Travis Frederick is going to play. So in a sense, it gives the Cowboys and it gives Joe Looney an exit ramp in a sense. Like, well, all right, I mean, maybe, if I'm Joe Looney, I'm not playing that well, but it's okay because Frederick's going to be back soon. Or the team gives them an exit ramp. Like, well, we haven't been playing as well without Travis Frederick, but, he'll be back soon. As opposed to a different reality, if you introduce that to your locker room, introduce a different reality to that locker room, he's not going to play this entire year. So now the psyche of the locker room changes. Now the psyche is, we have to make this thing work with this group, and we're going to. And then if he comes back, it's extra. But they do the opposite, which is they overpromise and then underdeliver. They have the Cowboys and Cowboys fans right now thinking that this dude's going to be available to come back in the next month or so. And maybe he will, and that'd be amazing if he did. But from what I've heard from Travis Frederick himself, that doesn't seem likely. But yet, all we're left with, at the end of the day, is Jerry Jones going on the radio every week if the Cowboys don't do well, and telling us that Frederick will be back soon, and we're excited about Travis Frederick returning because he's going to be the missing piece. And then Jason Garrett continually answering questions about Travis Frederick's availability and continually not knowing the answer to that question. Then you have a locker room that continually doesn't know the answer to that question. Ultimately, what you have is a locker room that's looking to the damn sideline to see if they're going to go for it on 4th down. All right, coming up, we'll preview the Panthers and Cowboys game. Also, going to chat with the Cowboys rookie wide receiver Michael Gallup about huge expectations for him this season. But first, I need to tell you about Mack Weldon. And the truth in life is, when you change your underwear, you change your life. That is absolutely true. At Mack Weldon, they started from scratch and engineered their own fabric. They made sure the design process was meticulous so that you can count on the fit being the exact same each time. They built a world-class customer experience. The difference is in the details with Mack Weldon. They're so obsessed in every stitch and seam until they'd reached the definition of Mack Weldon Perfect. And that's what they have now with their line of underwear and their line of men's clothing. They believe in smart design, premium fabrics, and simple shopping. Look, you go to MackWeldon.com. It's easy to shop. It's easy to navigate. It's easy to find the perfect size for you in the perfect colors. And here's the best part. Try Mack Weldon's underwear. Try their socks. Try their shirts. Try their undershirts. Try their hoodies. Try their sweatpants. If it's not the most comfortable thing you've ever worn, call them up. Tell them it's not the most comfortable thing you've ever worn, and they're going to refund you your first pair. You don't have to send the items back. That's how confident Mack Weldon is that you're going to feel the exact same way I felt when I first put on my first pair of Mack Weldon underwear. Not only does Mack Weldon's underwear, socks, and shirts look good, they perform well too. It's good for working out, going on dates, just everyday life. And when you go to MackWeldon.com right now, you're going to get 20% off your first order. Mack Weldon, MackWeldon.com. Use promo code CB, Cowboys Beat, CB. Use that promo code at checkout. You're going to get 20% off your first order. Again, go to MackWeldon.com, promo code CB, Cowboys Beat, and get 20% off your first order. And again, if you don't love the premium fabric, the great design, the unbelievable comfort feeling you have when you put them on, then call them up. Tell them you didn't like it, and they'll refund you without even having you send the item back. Now that is commitment to their product. And again, you change your underwear, you change your life. MackWeldon.com, promo code CB, Cowboys Beat, CB. MackWeldon.com, 20% off your first order. CB is the promo code to use at checkout. All right, let's visit with Michael Gallup, Cowboys' third-round draft pick on the Cowboys Beat now. And Michael, you were just telling me that your nickname is MG. That's what people call you. It's obviously your initials, but where does it come from?
Really just from high school. Everybody would just call me MG. Nobody wanted to say Michael. We had a couple Mikes on the team too, so they just said MG.
I guess that's easier than calling you Gallup or something. With all my friends growing up, it was always, if we didn't call them by their first name, we called them by their last name. I don't know.
I understand that.
So you're from Georgia, right?
Yes, sir.
So how do you end up at Colorado State?
I had to go to the junior college first. Then I got hurt my sophomore year, didn't have any offers. And luckily, Bobo's up there at Colorado State, and he knew me from when, I was getting recruited out of Georgia. So he told me to come up on a visit, and that's where I went.
And you played against Cheeto, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, we played against Cheeto. It wasn't our best game, but, we played against each other.
So he got the better of it?
Well, he wasn't even actually playing corner. He was playing like nickel pretty much the whole game. But, his team definitely got the better of us.
So, when you hear questions from Cowboys fans, they all want to know who's the number one receiver for this team. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
I honestly don't know what it means, because if you have a bunch of good receivers, you don't have to have a number one. Everybody can play just about any position on the field, so it's like you don't need a number one. everybody's going to do their job, and they're going to get put in different spots. So you don't have to have a number one.
I mean, you think traditionally the X is, is that, it's funny because people will ask, like, who's the Cowboys' number one? It's like, well, what does that mean? Does that mean who's going to lead the team in targets? Who's going to lead the team in yards? Who's their X? Like, that's what I don't, how do you traditionally think of that position, the number one?
Traditionally think of a number one. I never really thought of a number one, to be honest. When I was in college, I played X, I played Z, I played in the slot. People said I was the number one, but I played everywhere. So it was like, it didn't really matter to me.
What are you most comfortable, playing outside, playing inside?
I definitely say I'm more comfortable outside, but I can go inside whenever I need to. So,
when the Cowboys during the preseason, especially was it week 2 or week 3 of the preseason, had a 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 with that first string offense, they went to you. What does that say to you?
I mean, that says I done earned a little bit of respect. I earned a little bit of trust, and I need to make sure I'm backing it up every time they call my number. So, that's what it means to me, and I'm definitely blessed to be in that situation. I'm going to, keep doing my best to make them right.
When you were scouted coming out of college, the MO on you was you can run every route, you can play inside, you can play outside, as you said. What is that what you've been doing with this team too? Because we've seen a lot of the receivers, and I remember talking to Sanjay Lal at training camp, basically about everybody's playing all these different spots and everybody's interchangeable. Is that still the case?
That's definitely still the case. There's a lot of people that go in at different positions. Coach puts us in motion and go into different positions. That's just how it is. They're gonna have to guard us one way or the other.
But explain that to me, because I don't really understand football like you guys do. So I think an X can only run certain routes. F can only run certain routes. Right? Is that the case or no?
No, that's not the case. Nah.
So you can basically run any route on the tree from any spot.
Of course. That's the only way you're going to be able to play all those positions. That's really a good thing for you because, the better suited you are with the whole route tree, more spots you can play. So that just, that actually helps you in the long run. They want to keep you on the team or want to cut you. You can play all the positions that are probably going to keep you on the team.
Is there any motivation from you, especially you look at a guy like DJ Moore going up, you're not going to obviously play against him in Carolina, but he's a first-round receiver. You're part of that group that was a draft pick and a receiver. Does that motivate you?
Motivate me as in, because he went before me?
Yeah.
Oh, not really. We hung out at the rookie premiere. That's my dog. I hope he plays good. I'm pretty sure he's hoping the same for me. Motivation, I get my motivation from myself. Can't look to others to get motivated. He went in front of me. That's great for him. It's just how it is.
Yeah. So what are your expectations going into week 1? Obviously everything's new for you, training camp, preseason. So what are your expectations now for the regular season?
My expectations is to help our team win. That's really all I need to do. If I do my job, and then we come out on top, all I can do is watch the film and say I did what I was supposed to do.
But is it going to be different? Is it going to feel different? Is it going to feel like a game at Colorado State? Is it going to feel like
at the end of the day, football's football. For me, that's just how it is. Football's football. So it's not going to, there might be a couple more people in the stands. The playbook might be a little bit big at the end of the day, but football's football.
All right, thanks, man.
Yes, sir.
Football is football. Somehow I find that hard to believe. That's Cowboys rookie wideout Michael Gallup with high expectations for him. Cowboys play the Panthers Sunday, 3:25 in Charlotte, week 1 of the NFL's regular season. I can't believe it's already here. And, by the way, the pregame show starts at 12:30 on Sunday. 3 hours of pregame talk with myself and Jesse Holly, and then, of course, the game and the postgame to follow. So make sure to spend the day Sunday with us on the Dallas Cowboys Radio Network locally in DFW on 105.3 The Fan, and you can stream it on the radio.com app. Always love the questions streaming in from Twitter, and I've got a question that came in on Twitter this week, which I'll get to in a moment. But first, I want to give you a little bit of a preview. Carolina Panthers and Dallas Cowboys heading into this football game. Panthers are a tough matchup, obviously. They have an offense that's built like a modern NFL offense in a way. They have a dual-threat quarterback, Cam Newton. You already knew that. They've got a legitimate wide receiver target at running back at Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey led the NFL for running back targets when it comes to pass catchers. They also have big tight ends in the middle of the field. You know about Greg Olsen, but then there's also the third-round draft pick out of Indiana, Ian Thomas, who will factor in huge for this offense. So they have this dual threat tight end situation where they can line up on either sides of the formation with those two big guys. Plus, they've got a good pass-catching running back, and, of course, the dual-threat quarterback. So they're a modern NFL offense. Now, Norv Turner is their new offensive coordinator. So we'll see how much of the modern techniques he institutes, because Norv Turner is basically as old as football itself. Obviously, he's got a connection to the Dallas Cowboys, having been with the Cowboys, but it's going to be his first year with Ron Rivera in Carolina, and it should be interesting. So the offense looks really, really good for Carolina, except for their offensive line, which is missing the starting left tackle. Matt Khalil is out. Questions on whether or not their right tackle will play, and there's another guy missing from their starting offensive line. They're only going to have two of their normal starters in the lineup Sunday. So seems perfect for DeMarcus Lawrence, Randy Gregory, and this unbelievably dominant defensive line that we've seen for 4 weeks of the preseason and all throughout training camp. Seems like the perfect situation for them. DeMarcus Lawrence said so much Thursday during the media availability in the Cowboys locker room. It's not my fault those guys are out, so we've got to take advantage of this opportunity and get after the quarterback. The big key in this is, can the Cowboys dial up pressure early on? Rod Marinelli, as a defensive coordinator, doesn't tend to be the most aggressive guy. He wants to be able to get home with 4, and that's okay if you can, but the problem is, if they can't, then Cam could sit there and pick them apart, and we know that Cam Newton, when he gets a lead, he doesn't lose that lead. Cam Newton last year was 10-0 when leading at halftime. In his career, he is 45-8 when leading at halftime, and 9-24-1 when they don't. So the Cowboys need to jump on them early. They need to sack him early and not let any of this Carolina offense get into any rhythm. On the other side, the Carolina defense we know how good it is with Luke Kuechly and Quan Short and Dontari Poe now. I mean, this is a very, very good defense. So the Cowboys, their key is probably going to be the guy that I spoke with, Michael Gallup. Zeke Elliott's going to do what he does, but the key for beating quality defenses is their ability to win one-on-one matchups on the outside. It's something we've talked about a lot, but it's probably even more true in week 1 when they're going up against a really good defense. You could beat bad defenses with just Zeke. You can beat bad defenses being one-dimensional. You're not going to beat many good defenses being one-dimensional. All right, that's my preview for Cowboys and Panthers. Again, kickoff at 3:25, but catch the pregame show starting at 12:30, where I host on the Dallas Cowboys Radio Network. And again, you can stream it live on the radio.com app. Last week, I mentioned John Nelson, who streams this podcast every week from Leeds in the UK. Well, he responded to me on Twitter. He says, thanks for the shout-out the last podcast. Could you consider an hashtag AskAri slot where fans ask for your views? Here's one for next week. Are you more or less concerned for the season after roster cuts? So thank you to John, and I'd like everybody to follow John's lead. If you have any questions you'd like to ask me and have them answered right here on the podcast, use the hashtag AskAri, and make sure to tag me at Ari Sports, A-R-I Sports, hashtag AskAri. So John, for the inaugural Ask Ari segment, am I more or less concerned for the season after their roster cuts? Well, I'm certainly not more concerned based on their roster cuts. But I am obviously concerned based on the availability or lack thereof of Travis Frederick. And while I do believe that Joe Looney is okay, I again think that this Cowboys offense is built to be dominant on offense. And even though they look to be improved on defense, this team is still going to win and win big with an offense. And they're going to win big by beating you up front, winning the line of scrimmage with their running game, and then using that to open up quality matchups on the outside and winning those matchups. So I wouldn't say roster cuts had me more concerned about this team in this season. I've been optimistic throughout all of training camp and really the entire offseason for this team. But what's making me pessimistic is availability of Travis Frederick, Zach Martin's knee, which is fine now, but who knows if it'll hold up all year, and Tyron Smith's back. That's what makes me concerned. And though I think they made quality additions at roster cut time by adding in a Parker Anger and trying to fortify as much as they could that offensive line. There's just not replacing all-pro guys like Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, and Travis Frederick. But we'll see when they kick this thing off on Sunday. All right, make sure to subscribe to this podcast. Make sure to rate the podcast. I would very much appreciate that. Also, make sure to check out my daily stream. I stream every day Cowboys Talk at 12 o'clock Central Time. It's 12 o'clock Central Time on Phantom, Facebook.com/Watch Phantom. And again, as always, make sure to check out the pre- and post-game show along the Dallas Cowboys Radio Network.